If you're just getting into triathlon, you're probably like most triathletes where you are struggling with swimming. That's normal. Most beginner triathletes struggle with swimming. Fortunately, swimming comes down to three really important things that are very simple to do. You need to know how to breathe, you need to know how to float, and you need to know how to swim straight. Unfortunately, there are 6 big killers that most beginner triathletes do that ruin their triathlon swim technique. And without solving these 6 major issues, you will never become a good swimmer in the pool or in open water. Fortunately, with some simple drills, we can fix that right here today. What's up, motivators? My name is Taren. When ordinary people want to accomplish something extraordinary in endurance sports, they choose our totally free Motive training plan. So you're ready to take on that next big challenge? Let's do it. The first thing that beginner triathletes struggle with is their breathing. And the reason for this is that the breathing technique that most new triathletes fall into is the opposite of what you should be doing. What happens with most beginner triathletes that ruins their breathing technique is we try to breathe the same way that we do on land. When we're on land, we are upright, there is oxygen everywhere, so we are very comfortable getting as much oxygen as we possibly can. So when we're in the pool, we take big gasps of air, huge gulps of air. And then when we stick our faces in the water, we unconsciously hold on to that air and don't really focus much on breathing it out. So what happens is carbon dioxide builds up into our lungs, causing a really tight feeling in the chest. And that tight feeling in the chest causes a panic response, and it causes us to feel like we're actually short of breath, when the reality is that we're actually taking in more oxygen than we need and not blowing out enough of what we need to get out of our lungs. The fix is what we call the reverse breathing technique, where instead of focusing 90% of the time on waiting for that gasp of air in, you focus 90% of your effort on blowing all of the air out when your face is in the water. You need to reprogram your brain to do this with some simple drills, where you go onto the edge of the pool and practice blowing bubbles really forcefully while humming with your hands on the edge of the pool. Gradually, as you get comfortable doing this, you then kick your feet off the bottom of the pool, still hanging on to the edge of the pool deck. Then you build up to a slow flutter kick while you're still breathing out and humming, and then turning to breathe to grab that little bit of air. And in doing this, what you'll be programming your brain to do is to immediately start focusing on a very forceful breath out as soon as your face enters the water. By doing this, you're going to get rid of all that carbon dioxide in your lungs, and you're not going to feel like you need to take as big a breath when you turn to breathe, which is what leads into issue number 2, lifting your head to breathe when you take every single breath. Now, because we are horizontal in the water and all of the oxygen is in behind us, what our bodies want to do is we want to lift ourselves as close to that oxygen as possible. So what most new triathletes do is we will lift our head and really turn to breathe to get that gasp of air. But in doing so, our legs sink into the water and our body kind of scrunches like a banana, causing a lot of drag. Fixing this is really simple. When you're developing all of that breathing technique with the first drills by humming and just turning your head to breathe, what you should focus on is only turning your head so that the side of your mouth, like a little Popeye mouth, pokes out of the water. The surface of the water should cut roughly halfway between your head, right at the very top of your head. And as you're swimming straight, when your head is half submerged in the water and you have one goggle in the water and the other goggle out of the water, a bow wave is going to form around your mouth that is going to give you all of the room that you need to breathe. By just simply turning your head slightly and letting that bow wave form and using that bow wave to get your oxygen, you're going to be able to keep your body nice and level in the water so that you don't sink and you stay nice and streamlined, still moving forward and not losing all of your momentum by turning into a very high drag banana. That leads into the third issue, and that is a very wiggly body shape caused by an inactive core while we're swimming. You can go and look at some high performance swimmers as you're at the pool and look at them from their feet, from the end of the pool, looking at their feet and watching them swim away from you. What you'll see is that they're going to look very long, very straight, very tall, and then do the same thing with an adult onset swimmer. And what they're going to feel like is like they're very short and wiggly and scrunchy. The reason for this is an inactive core, and our body being separated from our legs. In our Triathlon Swimming Foundations book, we refer to this as swimming like a log. You want to swim straight like a log. Now, if you were to go and push a 20,000-pound log that is perfectly straight through the water, it's going to move really easily. But take a 200-pound gnarled up branch with all kinds of twists and turns and leaves on it, you're gonna have a really hard time pulling it through the water because there's so much drag. And we want to swim like that log, not like the branch. The way that you activate your core isn't actually by activating your core, because when you tense up your muscles anywhere in your body in the pool, you're gonna actually cause yourself to be really likely to sink. So what we want to build is more of an awareness of the core so that we can feel when our legs and our body are getting a little bit wiggly. How we do this is with kicking drills. And what we do with kicking drills is we absolutely do not kick with our hands on a kickboard and our head out of the water. That's something for elite swimmers to do who already have an extreme amount of body awareness. It's not for us age group triathletes to do. What we do with kick drills is we start with kicking with fins, a board, and a snorkel, and our face pointed into the water. With our arms stretched way out overhead, we can activate that core and start feeling a nice sensation of having our back of head, our butt, and our heels kissing through the surface of the water. Then gradually, as you progress this drill and get more and more comfortable, you can take away the snorkel. Then you can re-add the snorkel and take away the board. Then you can take away the fins and leave the snorkel and the board. Eventually, you can work your way up to just a snorkel, no fins, and no board. And the target in this is if you do it enough, you can get to the point where you can do a 25-meter or yard kick with just a snorkel in under 40 seconds, at which point your core is very nicely activated without being rigid. Moving further down in the body, the next thing that becomes an issue is our kick style. We don't want to create a lot of drag with our legs, and that can be done very easily because people tend to kick much more aggressively than they need to. Kicking should be as little as possible, especially in triathlon, where most of the time we're going to be wearing a wetsuit, so we don't need to kick to keep our heels at the surface of the water, and all the time we have to keep our legs fresh enough to be on the bike after that swim. So we want to kick as little as possible while creating as little drag as possible. So activating that core, keeping our head at the surface of the water with just turning to breathe and not lifting to breathe, what we should do when we focus on kicking is thinking like we're kicking inside of an ice cream pail, where most triathletes tend to kick really, really wide with a big scissor kick. You can take a look at this with somebody filming your kick from above or underwater, and what you're going to see is almost certainly you're kicking far, far wider than you think you are. What happens is that your legs get outside of the frontal plane of your body, creating drag off on the side and pulling you off from one side to another, also causing drag that is going to cause you to sink. But when you focus on kicking in that narrow 12-inch bucket that's about the size of an ice cream pail, your kick is going to be really nice and narrow, and it's also going to encourage you to have that nice activated core. Related to that is the second last thing that causes a lot of issues, and this is very particular to triathletes because we spend a lot of time running. Running tends to make our mobility much worse, which is why in our Motive Training app, we have one dedicated mobility session per week that's optional that can be added in to maintain all of your mobility so your body functions really well. And one thing that tends not to function very well with triathletes is our ankles. Due to the fact that our ankle mobility tends to go away from all the running, when we get into the pool, we tend to not point our toes. Our toes are dorsiflex, meaning that they are pulled up a lot towards our shin. That's essentially just a big wind sail in the water. Now, we don't want to point our toes really strongly, again causing tension in all of our legs, leading to the likelihood of a cramp going up and leading to a higher likelihood of sinking. So we want to gently focus on pointing our toes and having our big toes just pass by, kissing each other really gently. The ankles should feel like they're pointing towards the back edge of the pool, but still feel nice and loose. So we've talked about 5 key things that are technique killers, and none of these things are actually making us go faster. It's all making our technique much more efficient, and that is much more important for beginner triathletes to develop than speed and top-end power in the water. If you get all of those nailed down, then you can get into this last key point of technique, which is how we propel ourselves forward. And the issue that happens with most beginner triathletes is their arm position, and particularly their hand position, is not set up well to push them forward in the water. Because we don't have years of swimming, our body wants to gravitate towards a low resistance method of swimming. And that low resistance method tends to be turning our hand into a knife. What this means is if you are putting your palm into the water and trying to push back this way, your body will naturally try to move the hand a little bit this way or a little bit that way so that the hand can slip through the water with very low resistance. Now, of course, when it's slipping through the water, we're just cutting through the water and not actually grabbing onto the water and being able to push ourselves forward, similar to if there was a ladder underneath us while we were swimming and we were grabbing a rung of the ladder very forcefully and pushing ourselves forward. The easiest way to work on your hand swim technique is just to think that your palm should always be facing the very back side of the pool. Your fingertips should point down at the pool and your palm should face back at all times. And this means that to do this, your hand should enter the water and be angled downward about 18 inches under the surface of the water. Your fingertips should point at the bottom edge of the pool, and then your palm should face the back edge of the pool. If you keep that palm facing the back edge of the pool with the fingertips pointing down at the bottom of the pool, you're gonna be using that hand as a nice forceful scoop to propel yourself forward. In our Triathlon Swimming Foundations book, we call those three skills breathing like a dolphin, floating like a log, and swimming straight like an arrow. Do all those three things and you are going to be in the top 10% of most swim packs in all races all around the world, because most triathletes don't stop and focus on those basic foundational swimming techniques. If you want to dive completely into our How to Breathe Technique drill series, click the video that's on the screen right now that will walk you through start to finish all of those breathing drills and how to execute them. Later, motivators.